This news program is proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Now Biscuits.
Prime Minister James Marape opens 16th Mining Conference in Sydney. National Volunteering Services or PNG acknowledge International Volunteer Day. And NASFAN renews its partnership with Book Bilong Pikinini. Good evening, this is National EMTV News. I'm Godwin Eki. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister James Marape has officially opened the 16th PNG Mining and Petroleum Investment Conference in Sydney, Australia by drawing on the rich history of the nation as an oil and petroleum nation and its relationship with developing partners. Marape also spoke on the government's position as regulator and business partner in acknowledging and thanking those present. Prime Minister spoke highly of the country in a bid to draw investors at the conference to bring their businesses into the country.
Against the backdrop of the beautiful, iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge, the three-day Mining and Petroleum Conference in Sydney, Australia kicked off today. The theme for this year's conference is PNG Resources, securing the next wave of responsible investment. In officially signalling the opening of the event, the Prime Minister, James Marape, was foremost advertising the country's vast resources to those in attendance.
We are not a new mining and oil and gas nation. We have been producing oil and gas since the 1900s. More so, the ever-famous gold rush in Waubololo is a testament or a case in point in our history with mining and also oil and gas, in case some of you think we've been recently an oil and gas nation.
Mr. Marape also spoke of the potential of new investors and what the government can do to protect them.
Our track record speaks for itself. We are a mineral and petroleum nation. We know how to give incentives, embrace and protect investors, and allow investors to make a fair return on their investments. Look around and ask, for instance, two of Australia's biggest companies, Newcrest and Santos, and see how the PNG investments and assets have added into their total balance sheet.
Other keynote speakers this morning included Anthony Smare, President of the PNG Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, the Australian Minister for Development and the Pacific, Pat Conroy, who delivered his keynote address. The next 2 days will feature addresses by government leaders of PNG and Australia, presentations by the leading executives of mining, gas and energy companies with billions of keynote investments in PNG, and will be attended by over 1,300 international executives from the resources, energy, finance and development sectors. Rocky Iso, National EMTV News.
In commemorating the International Volunteer Day, the National Volunteering Services of Papua New Guinea conducted a cleanathon at the Goldie Training Depot today. This was to conduct awareness, advocacy and promotion of NVS and its volunteer intervention programs, and will partner and work with the Defence Department in civic and emergency situations and activities to provide emergency services to the people.
As per the partnership established with the National Volunteer Services of PNG and the PNGDF, the event was observed at the Goldie Training Depot to further strengthen the established relations. The International Volunteer Day is celebrated annually on the 5th of December worldwide to recognize the effort of volunteers in transforming their societies, economies and environment. According to the NVS PNG Executive Officer to the Executive Director's Office, Andrew Kedu-Kwakwa, said these days members of the public focus on issues concerning their communities. He said the goal of the day is to do a volunteer cleanathon at the Goldie Defence Barracks.
Coming to Goldie also gives greater significance given that the National Volunteer Services is an agency under the Ministry of Defense. So we share a common partnership underneath the white paper policy, blood defense. There are similar roles that, or rather, there's a common ground that, particularly in relief, disaster relief, and humanitarian aid.
This year's International Volunteer Day theme is Solidarity through Volunteering and aims to promote the collective power of humanity to drive positive changes through volunteering. The National Volunteering Services of PNG acknowledges the volunteers throughout the world for their sacrifices and services to humanity. Cynthia Maku, National EMTV News.
As many debates have been made by the members of Parliament regarding the 2023 budget, member for newly created electorate Popodata Open, Richard Masere, shared his debate. Masere encouraged the government to invest in the agriculture sector as it is a renewable resource that will benefit the people for a longer period of time.
Masere thanked the team who have been working tirelessly to prepare and bring forward the 2023 budget to the floor of Parliament. He acknowledged the government for investing in the agriculture sector to support the 85% of the general population who live in the rural areas of the country.
When you touch the heart of our people and get our people actively involved in participating in growing the economy, there's no need for our people to come to the cities. Why? Because money and stuff will place. If you look at our land, we've got more land, but less people work in the land. Why? Because we are not investing into agriculture. But when you start investing into agriculture, people start realizing that there's money to be made there.
Masere said he believes that when the government invests in the agriculture sector, it will contribute positively to the economy of the country.
But a lot of countries, before they import from us, and before we can export to them, there are certain food requirements or security standards that we have to match. Like if we want to send stuff to Australia, there is a food security or biosecurity that must be put in place. We must build a facility to be able to justify for us to export. Yimigat all man Mary ready to provide cash crops. But if we don't build facilities to be able to bring that to that standard where all this country expect him, then we can keep talking about exporting, but we will never get it to them.
He reiterated that before talking about exporting products overseas, food security for the country is something that must be taken into account as well. Samantha Solomon, National EMTV News.
During the 2023 national budget debate in Parliament last week, Deputy Opposition Leader highlighted some areas that the opposite house of the Parliament perceived that need answers too.
DBD opposition leader and member for Kiriwina Kudinaf, Douglas Dumuresa, during the budget debate raised a question as to why the government still had over $1 billion kina from its development budget still sitting in the account.
Are the honorable members of the government aware that the Secretary for National Planning very recently during the budget lockup that his department is still holding on to a total of 1.8 billion kina?
He questioned if this action by the government portrays a responsible government and added that something is not right and answers are needed.
Why can't the government use these public funds to complete the outstanding funding for our schools and our districts? But what has allowed this situation to happen? What is the government withholding money? Why is the government withholding money when our government services are screaming for funding?
Thomas Suliambari, National EMTV News.
National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. You're watching National EMTV News. The Managing Director of the National Fisheries Authority, Justin Ilakini, headed a team of technical and policy officials to attend the 19th annual regular session of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission held in Da Nang, Vietnam. Mr. Ilakini, in delivering a statement expressing Papua New Guinea's standing and dedication towards enhancing direct local and regional participation in the sustainable management and development of fisheries resources.
Mr. Ilakini urged the distant water fishing nations, development partners and members of the WCPFC to recognize and respect the special needs and rights of small island developing states and territories, including PNG, who are owners and custodians of the fishery resources in the Western and Central Pacific Ocean. He encouraged the meeting to pay particular attention to important conservation and management measures and the importance of the Commission in reaching consensus on a skipjack tuna harvest strategy and its associated key elements that would ensure the skipjack stock in PNG waters and the rest of the Western and Central Pacific Ocean is managed at a sustainable level. The Managing Director further made known to the Commission PNG's expectation for a productive discussion on harvest strategies for the other key tuna species to be progressed at the WCPFC 19. It further urged the Commission members to harness the compliance monitoring scheme to guarantee that the conservation and management measures are unilaterally adhered to across all regions to ensure the sustainable management and development of the resource. Cynthia Maku, National EMTV News.
A free medical checkup program and the World AIDS Day program have been integrated and carried out at Karavet in the Gazelle district by health specialists in East New Britain province. This integrated program targets the general public and ran for 4 days.
Specialized health workers carried out free tests for blood pressure, malaria eye test, HIV/AIDS, heart rates, TB and body temperatures, as well as weights and heights. According to the Acting District Health Coordinator Wunais Leba, regular checkups help individuals to identify health issues affecting their bodies at an earlier age in order to get treated before it gets worse. She added that a regular visit to health centers is important for early detection and treatment. She also said many healthy-looking individuals who turn up for testing and checkup had results that show high blood pressure with high sugar levels. The second part of the integrated program was World AIDS Day that was held on Thursday, 1st of December. World AIDS Day had been commemorated in the district by the LLGs, with the team putting ourselves to test, achieving equity to end HIV/AIDS, displayed through floats, parade, educational role plays, and awareness speeches. Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
NESFAN signed a lease agreement at a concessional rate for another 3-year term with Bookbelong Pikinini this morning to renew the partnership of providing the current office space at Konedobu in Port Moresby. NESFAN head of Special Projects, Judah Wafi, said their partnership with Bookbelong Pikinini started in 2010 and they will continue to support because Bookbelong Pikinini helps to train the next generation to be productive citizens of this country.
The executive officer for Bookbelong Pikinini, Lian Reston, and Chudawafi from NESFAN signed the 3-year term lease agreement in front of the children from Bookbelong Pikinini at Tatana village in Central Province. NESFAN is one of Bookbelong Pikinini's long-term fundamental platinum partners, having generously supported the charity for 12 years with office space. With NESFAN sponsoring the office space has been a vital part of Bookbelong Pikinini's ability to grow from being a small grassroots organization to a charity employing nearly 70 staff members across the country. Chudawafi said Bookbelong Pikinini is one of the major corporate social responsibility obligations obligations that Nest Fund provides as part of their activity. He said it's not a lot that they provide, but it goes a long way as it helps to train the next generation of this country.
We've continuously done this, as I mentioned, over 10 years, and we will continue to do so, especially with the work that Book Belong Pikinini does. The organization has grown. They've got about 25 library centers like this around the country now, and in places like this they provide free childhood early learning to the community. So this is such a great activity that they undertake. As you know, they also set up libraries in communities around the country, and Nest Fund is proud to be part of this initiative. And
on behalf of Book Belong Pikinini, the executive officer Lian Rasson thanked Nest Fund for providing the much-needed office space. She said this will allow them to continue to develop their programs as they expand their reach out to more communities across the country. She said the teaching resources and programs are developed, and with the growth of the organization, the need for a secure space is vital.
With this space, it provides us the much-needed space, the ability to continue to grow in terms of, as you said yourself, we now have over 20 library learning centers, and that would not have been possible if we didn't have a secure office space, to continue to develop the teaching resources. As you know, the teaching resources are internally developed.
The children and Mr. Wafi had a numeracy counting activity for fun after the agreement was signed. Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
And now looking at the Nest Fund market report, the kina closed unchanged at $0.2840 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina is buying $0.2765 $0.4040 Australian dollars, $0.2550 euro, 36.71 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York closed, gold is trading higher, coffee closed lower, cocoa closed higher, copra closed lower, palm oil closed lower, crude oil is trading higher, copper closed higher. On the stock market, the Dow Jones closed higher, the ASX 200 is trading higher, and the All Ordinaries is trading higher. National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Isi Henry Leonard, made it known on the floor of Parliament that the ministry is doing all it can to promote arts and culture through the National Cultural Commission in the country. Minister Leonard highlighted the importance of PNG's culture and tradition and the significance behind it. Respecting traditional cultures and values remain a significant piece of history, says Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture. He said Papua New Guineans must make it their business to help preserve PNG's diverse cultures and languages. Minister Isi Leonard said through the National Cultural Commission, his ministry over the last term of Parliament focused on cultural activities such as cultural shows in the country where certain cultural events had to be revived to keep the culture and tradition of PNG alive in the country. He said from the national level down to LLG levels, cultural activities must be prioritized. He said the National Cultural Commission has been working with various communities where cultural events and tourism activities are both running hand in hand. He said that introducing arts and culture in education institutions is also a way forward for young Papua New Guineans to continue to practice PNG's cultures and traditions. Minister Leonard said the National Cultural Commission will continue to work with locals to preserve and promote PNG's cultures and traditions. He said more and more events will be organized moving forward to promote PNG. On the 26th of November, the Indian Hindu communities in Port Moresby celebrated the 100th centenary of Pramod Swami Maharaj, a Hindu spiritual leader of India. This saw the Hindu community come together with Hindu spiritual leaders that visited PNG from Australia celebrate the day in Port Moresby. Present on the day to witness the auspicious occasion was Indian High Commissioner and West New Britain Governor. Hindus in Port Moresby gathered to celebrate the auspicious occasion of the 100 years of their spiritual leader, Pramod Swami Maharaj. The event was led by two Indian spiritual leaders who visited Port Moresby from Australia to pray and celebrate the occasion. The main idea behind the event is to bring the message of goodwill, harmony and happiness to every household and families around the world.
We had the privilege to celebrate 100th birth centenary of His Holiness Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharaj in presence of auspicious Pujya Swamijis in Port Moresby in PNG for the first time in history. The golden guidance of His Holiness Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharaj to all the families globally with the motto, let's bring happiness in our household through family harmony.
Hindus who believe that there is always a solution to every problem believe that their spiritual leader had 7 golden rules, and one of which was to forgive and forget. The spiritual leader, Pramod Swami Maharaj, to make others happy, visited over 250,000 homes. He wrote 750,000 letters and visited 17,000 villages. He inspired more than 4 million people to become addiction-free, which was enough to prove that spiritual leader Pramod Swami Maharaj was not a guru of any particular religion, of any particular nation, but he was indeed a guru of all humankind.
His Holiness Param Pujya Pramukh Swami Maharaj's motto was, in the joy of others lies our own. In the good of others lies our own.
Hinduism is a diverse system marked by a range of philosophies and shared concepts, rituals, shared theology and pilgrimage. The Western intelligence community is predicting Russia will struggle to rebuild its depleted military supplies through the coming winter months.
We're in the city of Kryvyi Rih in southern Ukraine, and this is a safe haven for Ukrainians fleeing the violence further south in the Kherson region. We've seen busloads of evacuees being brought here in the past fortnight from residential areas that are coming under attack from Russian forces along the Dnipro River, which is the southern front line of this war. But it's further east in the Donetsk region where the fiercest fighting is raging, particularly in the battle for the town of Bakhmut. And there are fears that Russian forces will encircle that town. But as winter sets in, the pace of the fighting is really slowing, and the Western intelligence community believes that slower tempo will continue over the coming winter months. We've heard the US Director of National Intelligence say that there's optimism for Ukraine's prospects going through those winter months and into the spring. Russia has lost half the territory it seized through this war, and the big challenge for both sides will be to reconstitute their forces on the front lines and to rebuild depleted military supplies. In particular, Russia is low on ammunition and missiles, and it's looking to its allies overseas to help lift those stocks. But the US Director of National Intelligence says there's skepticism about its ability to do that. Meanwhile, Ukraine is continuing to receive support from its NATO allies in rebuilding its military stocks. So the belief and the hope from the Western intelligence community is that it's Ukraine that has the upper hand going into winter and presumably going into the spring as well.
Taiwan's government is likely to lobby for Australian support to join a regional trade pact when a group of 6 MPs arrived in Taipei this morning.
The delegation includes former Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce, 3 coalition MPs and 2 Labor backbenchers. They are visiting Taiwan in a private capacity. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has stressed this is not a government visit. Now, these sorts of Australian delegations visiting Taiwan used to happen semi-regularly before the pandemic. But the timing of this one is interesting. Just a few weeks ago, Anthony Albanese broke the 5-year high-level diplomatic freeze with China when he met China's President Xi Jinping at the G20 in Bali. Just a couple of days after that, he said something interesting, which people over here definitely noted. Both China and Taiwan are lobbying Australia at the moment to join a new regional trade pact. And Mr Albanese said he thought only recognised countries will be eligible to join. In other words, not Taiwan. That was the first time people here had heard the Australian side say that. And Taiwan's government says it has clarified with Australian officials since that Australia's position hasn't changed, that Taiwan potentially down the track could still win Australian support for its bid. But either way, the 6 visiting MPs are very likely to be lobbied on this trade issue. Now, ahead of them visiting, they've been pretty tight-lipped. There's obviously a lot of sensitivity about this trip, except for some members of the delegation to say that this is about showing support for the status quo and showing support for regional peace. Now, that, of course, is important because just a few months ago, China fired missiles around this island. Tensions between China and the US over Taiwan are rising. So you would expect, of course, in Beijing, the Chinese government too will be closely watching this visit of Australians.
April has broken out in the West African Parliament after a male lawmaker slapped a female colleague.
It happened during a budget debate when an opposition legislator hit a female lawmaker in the Senegalese National Assembly. A brawl then broke out and a chair was thrown across the room. Feminist groups and members of the government have condemned the attack. Tensions have been growing between ruling and opposition politicians since a July election in which the ruling party lost its comfortable majority.
National MTV News continues after the break with Trukai Sports. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Hohola off-season rugby league continued its round 4 matches today before it starts its round 5 matches this Friday. With 32 participating teams, round 4 matches of the Hohola off-season league ended today following the under-20 boys matches. While today's matches didn't attract enough spectators and supporters, teams from today's matches carried off with their games as per the schedule. Come Friday this week, the tournament will see round 5 matches where both the men's and women's division will compete in the A-grade division. Come round 6 and 7, other tournaments will also take place during the normal season. This season will see 12 rounds in total before the competition comes to an end. Following the announcement of the train-on squad, a fortnight ago, the SPPNG Hunters have already started their pre-season training. The teams will train for a few weeks in Port Moresby before they head down to Australia. But before the teams head down, final selections will be made before the final 24-man squad is announced. Currently, the team is made up of players from this year's National Rugby League competition and the former SPPNG Hunters. Meanwhile, teams competing in the National Rugby League competition are also heading back into their pre-season training in January, 3 months before the 2023 National Rugby League Challenge kicks off. And Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
You're watching Trukai Sports. Moving overseas, Australia won the first test against the West Indies by 164 runs, but the hosts were made to work hard by the tourists about as deep into the penalty-made session of the match.
After resuming on 3 for 192, West Indies lost skipper Craig Braithwaite for 110, bowled by Nathan Lyon in the first session, to put a serious dent in their hopes of saving the match. A brilliant stand of 82 between Roston Chase and Alzari Joseph slowed down the Australians' march towards victory, but it was Nathan Lyon who had the last laugh. He took 6 wickets, leading all the Australian wicket takers to go with him. Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc both took 3 apiece.
Ashley Buhai has won the Women's Australian Open by 1 stroke in Melbourne's, while Poland's Adrian Maronk claimed the men's title in a convincing fashion.
Buhai completed an outstanding year, adding the win at Victoria Club to her British Open triumph earlier on in the year. Maronk became the first Polish player to win the men's tournament after romping to a 5-stroke victory, with Australia's Adam Scott and Minwoo Lee finishing 2nd and 3rd respectively.
And that ends True Kai Sports. The Money Plus weather report is next. Stay with us.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
Weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Southern region, Port Moresby, partly cloudy with a shower or 2. Daru, Kerima and Alatau, cloudy periods with a shower or 2. Popondetta, cloudy with rain showers and thunderstorm. In the Momase region, Lae, Medang, Wewak and Vanimo, cloudy with rain showers and thunderstorm. In the New Guinea island, Lorengau, KV and Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe, as well as Buka, cloudy with some showers and possible thunderstorms. In the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka and Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabe, cloudy with rain showers and possible thunderstorm, then morning fog. Waters of southern PNG, Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru to Kerima to Yule Island to Hood Point to Samurai Islands, seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Samurai Islands to Cape Vogel to eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Cape Vogel to Ewan Gulf to Finschhafen, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Finschhafen through Whittier Straits to Siassi and Long Island, seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Long Island to Medang to Wewak to Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border, seas 1 to 2 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of New Ireland to New Britain and Bougainville, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Ocean forecast: Coral Sea sees moderate south to southeast winds of 15 to 20 knots. Solomon Sea sees slight northeast to southeast winds of 10 to 15 knots. Bismarck Sea sees slight to moderate northwest to southeast winds of 10 to 15 knots. And Pacific Ocean sees moderate northeast winds of 15 to 20 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And that wraps up the news, sports and weather for Monday, the 5th of December 2022. From all of us here, pleasant viewing. Bye for now.
This news program was proudly brought to you by
Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits
and Gold Nuggets.